Hello everybody, it is me, GamePenguin21, and today... yes, you read that title correctly. Today, we are going to be taking a look at Alyssa Mercante's video on gaming journalism in the current year. To be quite honest, I only saw this video because I believe Sneaky Cacti or someone else decided to put it up, and let me just say, boy, we are in for a treat today. Because if you thought that Alyssa Mercante before was a little bit, kind of bad, buckle up, because she has a lot to say from this. Now, do I disagree or think that Alyssa Mercante is a bad person? No, that's not really what this video is about. This video is talking about how she is probably the most biased games journalist you will probably ever have, and that's in before the fact that she wrote a weird piece that was very quote-unquote personal, a journey piece on the Elden Ring DLC. This is also barring the fact that I believe she is either currently in the process of, or at least sending papers to Smash JT, who is another, I think, gaming journalism or influencer type dealio, where they're in a legal battle or something like that. Very fucking stupid, very dumb. I'm not going to go through the whole lore here because you already know, but to go through some of her personal hits, she basically is just everything wrong with the gaming industry, or everything wrong, not with the gaming industry, but with the gaming journalism at large. But let's prove that by watching this video. With all that being said, if you like that, it is that I do want to support me in any other ways you're able to perform other than like and subscribe, which is always enough. Links down to everything in the description below. My new album has been released already. Bored at Work. Go and check it out, and I'm probably going to annoy you for that whole thing. Links down to everything in the description below. With that being said, let's get started.
To be a games journalist takes luck, first of all.
Okay, so 5 seconds in, and I kind of have to already talk about this because, number one, that intro is just the most boring industry. I'm about to give you, like, a lecture in a college hall, put to sleep shit that I've ever seen. If you're going to be an influencer and you're going to have an intro, don't in the current year, or at the very least, don't make it that fucking boring. And I'm not talking about like, oh yeah, give me the freaking dubstep like super gamer intro. Like, I would at least be entertaining in a kind of ironic sense. But if you're going to make a video like this, just going off and ranting on stuff, actively like don't do stuff like that, because there's a reason why I dropped my intro for it and just started to just yap towards the beginning of the video, because it gives a very interesting context to everything else that I'm about to talk about. But again, this is just the start of the iceberg. Buckle up.
As you can see from the fact that I am one of hundreds of unemployed games journalists, the industry is shrinking. Modern media is disappearing, and it's being replaced by influencer culture and reactionaries. You need to be a little bit more open-minded to the way in which you impart journalism as a games journalist in 2025. That's why I'm trying this. I think you need to be flexible with the ways in which your stories, your reporting, your opinion pieces, your commentary, the ways in which you bring that to the world, the ways that you present it. So I think, yes, obviously, there's the traditional thing of Ollie Welsh writing about Black Myth Wukong continuing its gaudy streak and it getting published on Polygon.com. But there's also things like what I'm trying to do. It's not necessarily like proving to be the most lucrative thing in the world, and growing a Twitch channel takes a lot of work and a lot of time. There are so many people who have become reactionary YouTubers who are making money and content off of this reporting that we all know is rooted in obfuscations and lies and all of this stuff. So in my...
Okay, so I wanted to let that play out because this, number one, is probably the most important thing throughout the entirety of this video. She'll present a point, and a point that I actually kind of agree with. For example, the point that she brings up in this is that the gaming is journalism stuff is shrinking. Yes, absolutely. She also mentioned that, like, I am one of hundreds of unemployed gaming journalism, which, like, boo-hoo, you weren't good at your job, smallest violin, all that stuff. But first of all, with that, she says that she wasn't fired, at least for the context of her being unemployed, quote unquote, that she didn't want to do it and that she left of her own accord. While very soon after, it was reported that a bunch of people got fired from that same gaming journalism outlet that she was a part of. Now, I'm no psychologist or linguist or anything, but the actual wordage that she's using to me screams that she was actually fired, and either one of two things happened. Either she knew about the layoffs and just decided to leave before she officially got fired to still get like benefits or something like that, or she was actually fired and is fucking lying about not getting fired because they didn't give specifics of who was or was not fired. But also, this is something that she will consistently do throughout this rest of this whole 6-minute video, in that she is very biased towards the gaming journalisms and gives them a lot of leeway in terms of, oh, this is like this and that and the other thing. But then completely goes off on people with much more reasonable points who have critiqued her and other gaming journalism in the past. Like, what the fuck, lady? Like, you can't take any mild criticism. In fact, what I would recommend is that you should grow thicker skin quickly, because a content creator has to deal with a lot more people hating on them, a lot more critique, and a lot more of a fine-tooth comb if they're supposed to be if they're supposed to be allegedly reputable and actually present things from an unbiased perspective. I'm actually presenting things from an unbiased perspective for the most part. I just don't like Alyssa Mercante personally, because she hates gamers, and like, my stance on that and blah blah blah. But like, for the most part, if you look at the rest of my channel, I try to present things as neutrally as possible. And with you don't. Why do I know this? Because you are talking about things such as reactionary, buzzword, content creators, which I think is kind of a buzzword now, and people who are like, she'll bring up later, like gooners and stuff like that, which again is one of those buzzwords that people throw around when they just don't agree with what the person is talking about. It's very vehemently obvious as we go on that she has biases and will continuously spread this quote-unquote misinformation that everyone else seems to be spreading, but not her. Not her at all. She's the voice of reason, as you will hear in this next clip.
Belief is that if there's somebody who is consistently online combating that, then that there is a way for this to be a new sort of avenue for modern video game journalists. And it could be good, but it is also very hard to get this up off the ground. So I think that is something that games journalists in 2025, they have to be willing to be a little bit more fluid with what they're doing and how they're doing it. That's why I want to do stuff like this. Like, I know this stuff. I know these people that are reporting on these things. I know the PR people that are reaching out to them. And I think having a conversation about it, sitting down and saying like, so let's put this into perspective. Black Myth Wukong wins Gotti at the Steam Awards. Okay, it's fan voted. Okay, why would Black Myth Wukong win Gotti at the Steam Awards if it's fan voted, and if it's honestly just a pretty mid game? It has to do with the fact.
And therein lies again the problem. You're not unbiased. You are very extremely biased and seemingly trying to push a narrative given your previous works. We have a pattern of history of this. You know these people, meaning that you will give them more of a leeway due to the effect of the mere exposure effect. You will continuously try to bat for them because they are in your in-group, and people in your in-group can't do anything wrong. You will continuously try to put up totem poles and then yell at those totem poles and straw men and continuously put everyone into one box that is quote-unquote against you, despite the fact that some of those people have legit critiques of your work. Like, you do not care about the shit that you're talking about, and in some cases, like this here, you're wondering, oh, why is it fan voted and therefore, not subject to the same opinions as all these people that I agree with? It's because the people that you agree with weren't the ones being asked the question, or they were and they answered it in the negative, but they were outvoted by people who actually agreed that the game was good. Like, you might think that the game was mid, you might think that the game was not the greatest in the world and that it didn't reinvent a lot of the stuff, which it technically didn't, but the people who actually liked the game and understand that there is not necessarily needing to reinvent the wheel, but to just present and put the pieces together in a skillful manner to actively make a picture that is complete and artistically viable, that's the biggest thing there. And that's the reason why this game was voted in the way that it was. It's almost like, right? It's almost as if the general populace is skeptical and does not like gaming journalism because gaming journalism is pushing a narrative that's stupid, and the gaming journalists don't see that because they are so heavily invested into this culture war that they kind of started.
That this has become a sort of standard bearer for these quote unquote culture war going on in modern video games. That, you know, in November 2023, Reb and Kihun reported on a toxic work environment that was happening at Game Science. Rebecca did an absolutely, unsurprisingly brilliant job. Reb Valentine is one of the best journalists in the video game industry. She went through absolute hell. She's nominated with me for Worst Journalist at the Gamer Awards, but I'm gonna win, Reb, so suck my dick. You perfect, amazing bitch. This piece was published in November 2023. It was incredibly well...
And there it is. The biases again, ladies and gentlemen. This is, again, one of the reasons why Alyssa Mercante gets so heavily criticized, and most of gaming journalism do. It's because they're perpetuating this whole thing here. And this article that she brought up here was, she said it was released in November, and was eventually, after a bit, actually debunked by several different sources from my knowledge here. I know that other people talked about this, and at the time this became one of, if not the bigger talking points about, like, this being a bad game. But let's take a quick look at some of the other things that were said about this game by gaming journalists. One of, if not the biggest things that was said, or that was kind of got swept under the radar, was the fact that they were bullied by Sweet Baby Inc. due to the fact that they wanted to be paid about, like, what, $7 million or something like that to use their services, or their game will not sell or anything like that. So they bullied, or they attempted to extort or something along those lines of the game, and, like, that just makes it look bad. Like, that doesn't make it look good. And then that, like, kind of reinforces, like, it might have happened, it might have not, but there is enough evidence to support that that might have been true, allegedly, that this happened. Now, the alleged story goes like this. Again, like I said before, Sweet Baby Inc. or another equivalent company comes up to Black Myth Wukong developers and says, hey, use our services or we're going to do, like, this whole bullshit against you. And they said no, and therefore this whole bullshit against them happened. Now, that may or may not have happened, allegedly, but there is evidence to support it, with the main evidence, in my opinion, from my corner, is an official statement from the company head herself stating to terrify your marketing team to use your services if you want your game to succeed. She didn't say that verbatim, I kind of added that whole to your game to succeed, but she did say the first part where it's like, terrify your marketing department. As someone who is someone in the marketing department, or who does do marketing for people, that's garbage. And in the worst way possible. Because that's basically just strong arm and bullying a person to trying to do what you want. And I would personally, if I was in the marketing team, I would be like, get the fuck out of here. I'm going to rip up your card if you hand it to me. No.
Well reported, well researched. I mean, look at how long it is. Look at everything that she's pulled up here. It is really, really, really well done. Once Black Myth Wukong started getting a lot more attention again because it was nearing release, everyone found this article that Reb wrote, 6, 7, 8 months ago and started dogpiling on her for it. And so in that, since it was happening not too long after the Sweet Baby Inc. piece happened and all of that drama, it kind of got roped into this culture war because clearly that title alone will make a gooner be like, yeah, buddy, you're sexist? Well, count me in. Yuck. I really want to buy your game. What became the litmus test for anti-woke gaming, right? So the fact that it was even nominated for Gotti is crazy at the Game Awards. Is crazy.
Shut the fuck up about anti-woke stuff. You know nothing about anything that you're talking about here. Now, again, to bring up the whole Sweet Baby Inc. thing, I'm not sure what specifically she's talking about. Maybe it was the piece that she wrote on it. Maybe it was the piece that other people wrote on it. But to use that as an example, unfortunately, it doesn't help when people are trying to justify their own existence, like she's trying to do here, saying, oh, I'm just trying to be the voice of reason because I know these people and I've been in this specific part. I would trust you if you weren't biased as fuck. Because again, you talked about how you knew this person and that they do great work. That shows that you're biased towards this person and that you agree with this person's sentiment. Full stop. Like, and you wonder why people don't trust you. It's because you agree and use these buzzwords and try to make fun of people who you think are gooners, despite the fact that you say later in this video that they didn't have any women, therefore making those people who want to goon over women, which is usually what gooner is referring to, wrong. Like, those people would not exist because you were talking about sexists in that context. Gooners is not the same thing as you calling someone sexist. And some people might look at me and say, well, you're sexist because you're picking on a woman. I've picked on men and women and trans people all equally, because if you have a bad opinion that I would think needs to either be corrected or should at least be talked about or critiqued on, I attack that bad opinion. I'm not attacking Alyssa Mercante here. I attack her opinions. I said her piece on Elden Ring fucking sucked because she tried to equate her personal life to it too much, or that it came off as her trying to wax poetically about this whole bullshit that she herself fucking started in that context. And again, it's always the thing about how the gaming's journalists shot first, not gamers. We look at these articles and we say, hang on a second, all this bullshit, all this stuff that you're spouting is false. Here's the evidence to that. And they're like, oh, you're just a gooner. You're just someone who is a piece of shit and agrees with these sexist work ethics, despite the fact that there is very little, if any, evidence to support what they have, whereas we have mountains of evidence to this. Again, showing biases here. Quite interesting.
Crazy. Like, I'm not sitting here going like, this game sucked. It was a perfectly fine game. It didn't reinvent the wheel. It was a little rote in terms of the things that it was doing. It looked pretty cool. And that was it. Like, it is a thoroughly mid game. It is a game that you would play probably go through it because you get like wrapped up in the simplicity of it. You'd enjoy it and you'd beat it and you'd never play it again. That's a fucking 6. That's a 6. That's not a gaudy. It's not anti-woke. There's like no women in it, but like that's so many games. But of course, yes, this was like the standard bearer for anti-woke games. Everybody knew that it was gonna win the fan voted things, and it did. Ultimate Game of the Year at Golden Joysticks. It won Player's Voice category at the 2024 Game Awards. It won IGN's Community Awards. It's won fan voted awards in Spain, Croatia, Turkey, and Brazil. I'm not shocked that this is like this. And of course, Black Myth Wukong and fan voting awards is something that...
So, okay. I just realized this upon like watching this for like the 5th time. But she says like, oh yes, the game is not anti-woke because it doesn't have any women in it, which is quote unquote a lot of games today. Okay. You're wrong, but let me finish here. See, if not the biggest thing here is that you say that this became the litmus test for anti-woke games, but you yourself said earlier that it wasn't anti-woke because it didn't have any women in it, which is also fucking wrong. So, which is it? Was it used as an example in the anti-woke / culture war thing that you and your posse of journalism is trying to perpetuate in some way, shape, or form, right? And is proving to have some sort of fucking ineptitude because you can't even do the basic research in actually playing the game and seeing, oh yes, there is actually women in this game, and they do actually have a pretty significant and important fucking part in this game. And yet... you say, oh yes, it's a mid-game and it's a 6 out of 10 because you would play it once and doing that. So that would mean that every single Sony first-party game is also a 6 out of 10 since it does the same fucking thing over and over and over again. And yet, when The Last of Us Part 2 came out, The Last of Us Part 2, which for years was the most awarded game in the games industry, period, was only dethroned by Elden Ring, which, again, to the gaming's journalism out there, they said that it didn't actually, like, deserve a lot of the awards that it got, and they tried to dethrone it because they said, oh, all these awards don't count, but still would put up The Last of Us Part 2, which was a sequel to The Last of Us Part 1, which didn't have any gameplay improvements significant enough to reinvent the wheel. So, by your own logic, most of Sony's stuff, which a lot of gaming journalism will suck the cock of until they have drained the balls of all of their nutrients, would all be 6 out of 10s and would not be worthy enough for any Game of the Year or any awards at all based on this logic. So which is it?
Is being pushed by the people who are starting the real Game Awards. Fans are not voting in the Oscars. They're not voting in the Golden Globes. They're not voting. As much as we enjoy watching these events, as much as we enjoy seeing the red carpet, seeing the acceptance speeches, seeing the performances, this is a industry event by industry people for industry people. Every single major award show is voted on by people who are within that industry. And if I'm being completely honest with you, that's how it should be, because those are people who understand the work and the effort the best that goes into those things. If you are inside that industry, you are working with people in that industry, you were reporting on things in that industry, you know back to front how much effort it takes for someone to get so into the character in a movie that they lose themselves for a little bit, or, you know, someone to make an album front to back that they've produced themselves. You can do both. Like, you can have fan-voted awards and you can have industry awards. But I think
Okay, but I do that too. I haven't made games. I've worked in game engines enough times to know how it works. I work in Unity mostly, and I've done some 3D modeling on the side. All that's available on my Gumroad. I am a very creative person, and I've done art pieces for other people. So then that means that I should know about the marketing industry, or I should know about this and that and the other thing. I'm not uneducated, and I can easily look up a lot of this information. But, like, so what if all of these other stuff isn't fan voted on this? A lot of that shit seems to have some sort of corruption in it. And if any recent allegations of any of the latest celebrities coming out about how corrupt, bad, and stupid a lot of the back alley shit that's been happening in just Hollywood alone kind of shows that they have biases and shit. And if this video is anything to go off of, this, to me, shows why the trust has been deteriorating over the many years. It's because you are trying to push shit that is not worthy of being pushed. It's not good. And again, using your own logic, if you think that Black Myth Wukong, which you quote say is a one-and-done game that you can blow through in an afternoon, doesn't reinvent the wheel, doesn't add anything interesting to the gameplay, then that means all of Sony's third-person action RPG shooters that they've released for a long-ass time, or third-person action RPG, whatever, all of those games also don't deserve to win the awards that they've gotten, or deserve the GOTY of the year, which includes The Last of Us Part 2, which was the most awarded game until Elden Ring came along, which the gaming media completely fucking destroyed in terms of quote-unquote marketing coverage. And only recently came around because they were like, okay, well, we need to agree with the people who actually played the video games, the people who actually do that, and the people who actually experience that. And that's not including all these other indie developers that also have experience in there. They don't get a say in it. It's just the big games. It's just the big people who have a vested interest in pushing specific portions of stuff. Like, there's a reason why these sorts of things don't necessarily work in terms of voting systems. It can get skewed one way or the other if people want to push a specific narrative in one way, shape, or form. And it's dumb. It's very stupid. It's almost like when you have something that's a pure democracy, the voices like yours and the voices that like are the media with the biases, they're not the biggest voices around. And there is more people out there who have things that they like about stuff, and those people, and it resonates more with people. There's a minute left of this video. I'm not watching the rest of this because she's just going to go on to continuously talk about her whole biases of these things. And again, this is one of, if not the biggest reasons as to why Alyssa Mercante and gaming journalism in general isn't trusted anymore. They're not good at their jobs because they don't report things in a neutral or unbiased way. it just baffles me how they can say, oh, I'm an unbiased source and I'm going to provide the correct stuff, while glazing up their former employees and employers, while completely and utterly using debunked evidence that has been debunked for a while, because she says, like, oh, there's no women in this game, despite the fact that there fucking is. Like, it's baffling to me how people still do not know, even as journalists, to do research into the wider gaming industry, because their corner is just saying this one thing and trying to perpetuate them to agree with this one thing. If you're going to be a content creator, Alyssa, stop fucking glazing up your employers and employees or the people that you worked with, and realize that you are being biased and you are the one that's pushing narratives. It's insane to me how you can say these things with the full chest. Anyway, I think that'll about do it for this episode of I Ranted to a Microphone about stuff that clearly I seem to know very little about, despite the fact that I've been gaming for my entire life and have seen the decline of gaming industry in the past couple of years due to the various things and stuff that I've been researching. Overall, if you like what it is that I do, want to support me in any other way, shape, or form other than like and subscribe, which is always enough. Thank you so much for everything. Links down to everything in the description below. Bored at Work, my newest album, which is a album that I produce all on my own with music and things and stuff like that. Links down in the description to the Bandcamp. Go out and support that, listen to some of that music, and I hope you enjoy it. And again, it's one of those musics where I will not copyright strike you if you want to use it in your stuff, so all of my music is pretty much free to use and has nothing to do with it. Overall, thank you so much for watching again. My name is Penguin21, and a peace. Off.
Hey man!